From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Cairns. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. In today's podcast, Todd Jones joins me for his regularly scheduled Copywriting with Todd Jones segment, and we're going to talk about credibility enhancers. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. The SDM Show is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, the digital marketing concierge that helps you put all your marketing pieces together. We are your marketing experts. We are also your WordPress security experts and know how to lock down a website and protect yourself from bad actors. So contact us at Stunning Digital Marketing today. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. And in today's show, I have my good friend and co-host with his segment, Copywriting with Todd Jones. Mr. Jones, how are you, Todd?
I'm cold.
Yeah,
It's
you've got
cold here. It's too. We have your weather. It's lost in Arkansas, and you need to take it back.
Yeah, well, Mr. Waterbury told me to take it back to the other day. So, it's like, I don't want it. I just come from the warms.
We
Forget.
send it to the Dakotas or something. It's just cold, and So anyway, we're gonna have snow this week. So we'll see
It
how that. I
won't,
may be stuck at home for a couple of days.
it won't stay long, I'm sure. So today we
Probably not.
wanted to talk about credibility enhancers. And I think everything is about who you trust. And one of the things that builds trust is credibility. So let's start right there.
Yeah, so well, I call it credibility answer sometimes, and a lot of people, especially in the digital marketing industry, will call it social proof.
Yep.
So that's what it is. And yeah, I think even more so now, the need to lean on know, like, and trust is even greater than maybe it has in the last 15 years. And social proof or credibility enhancers, as I will call it sometimes, is a way to build that trust, to build those trust points with people. Um, I need to do like some research, but they used to say it takes about 10 to 12 touch points for somebody to make a purchase. I
Exactly.
think it's way longer than that now. I think it's closer to 50. And
So can I stop you there for a sec? What I would argue,
yeah,
and that's for a low volume product or a low cost product. I
yeah.
would say for a high cost product like a house, I take somebody like my
Oh,
mom who's been in the real estate business for 40 years, a car, a high-end renovation project. I would bet you those touch points are even higher, to be fair. So the more expensive the
yeah,
product,
it's gonna depend on a lot of variations, including the need. Um, for instance, and we're getting away from the topic a little bit, but I have a friend here in town who has started a business a little over a year ago. And so I live in Conway, Arkansas, which is just west of Little Rock, about 30 miles. Um, and people from the West Coast, California, Oregon, Washington, they are moving here in droves. They're selling their homes for a good price and buying a home of equal size or even bigger for less money. So they have money left over. And what they want to do is take that home and turn it into their dream space. So there's renovation involved. And what he has done, and he and his partner, business partner, has done is zeroed in on that. And they're getting these people, and right now it's just word of mouth. And they do the job, they do it well, they do a really good job, they do quality work, and then it's become word of mouth. But that word of mouth is a huge trust point, right? But I doubt he's getting 50 touch points, but he is getting strong touch points, I guess you might say, whenever somebody they know, hey, go see Danny and his team and they'll take care of you. So, but I do think there's a lot of context to it, but that's why we have a range when we do this. I would imagine something like a home, 10 to 50 touch points, depending, like, what you're looking for, what the market is, what your ability to pay is. But a big portion of that is going to be who they trust. right?
100,
And
100%.
so that's really I don't even think that's a point I put in there, word of mouth, but the word of mouth is a huge trust point,
Yeah.
a huge social proof. And it's not really something I actually had in my list, so I should be adding that.
And I'm
But
gonna
anyway,
tell you where word of mouth comes in. I'm gonna give a shout out to my good friends Phil and Robin who run Ringleader Fine Jewelers in Pickering, Ontario. And you and I have talked about the jewelry store. And they have a group, Facebook group called the West Rouge Community Group. So that's an area just east of where the store is. And in that group, the only jewelry store they rave about is Phil and Robin's store. Word of mouth. And
yeah,
there's always people that come in and say,
they have developed two of the points on my list, which we'll get to in a little bit: reputation
yep,
and expertise.
yep.
So we'll get to that. But yeah, that's so I guess that word of mouth kind of falls among actually all this. Word of mouth is the backdrop for
Mm.
each of these points in these credibility enhancers that
I
I
agree
talk
with you.
about.
So let's jump into them. Let's go into testimonials. I think there's a multitude of ways of doing it. It depends on what your industry is. So I think at the least bit, you should be doing them on Google. I don't know if on a Facebook page if they have any bearing anymore. They look nice. But depending on the company, I would say if you're in the restaurant business, you probably want to get them on Yelp. If you're in the home renovation business, you probably want to get them on Home Stars, right? There's a couple other niche thing, but
Is
the
that a
key,
Canadian one?
yeah, it is.
Okay,
And
not
then the
familiar with it.
and then
Yeah,
the other,
I just set up. I'm in the process of launching a website for a new client, a cleaning customer, and she had three review testimonies. I have no idea where they came from, but her Facebook page has four,
yep,
and I leaned on that to put testimonials on her website because
right.
it was easy to find, and we'll eventually get her on Google Maps, and she'll be uh, going away pretty good on that. But yeah, I don't think Facebook route now. When we talk about testimonials, there's a I, I'm splitting hairs a little bit between testimonials and reviews, right? Review is, you typically review like the product or the service, like, right, the like STM shows one of the best business minded podcasts, blah, blah, blah. A testimonial is Rob is a great podcast host.
Yep.
He carries on a great conversation. So there's a little bit of splitting hairs there, but the average person may not. But I will say a review, a testimonial, what you want is people to give characteristic or adjectives about you or your service. And what I put in my little notes, show notes that I passed along to you, is not to use superlatives or hyperbole. And people tend to do that, especially in these Facebook groups. Like, I would imagine your jewelry store gets some of these. Oh, they're awesome. They're great. They're the best store in town. Those are all. There's no quantifying.
There's no substance to that.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with that either. So that goes as a testimonial of love, whatever, and that's fine. A great testimonial is, hey, I had a piece of jewelry. It needed to be clean and had some cracks, and I went in and Robin took it, and for a couple days they worked on it, and it came back and it looked just like it did when we bought it 30 years ago. It was my wife's wedding ring, engagement ring, and now it looks just like it did 30 years ago when I bought it for her. That
Yep.
is a example of a good quality
And
testimonial.
and then let's go on to that too. As a business owner, if somebody posts a review or a testimonial, you should answer it actually. And you
Yeah,
should and you should thank them. If it's
yeah.
negative, you should reach out and say, how can I help? Make show, I mean, because the problem with reviews is, and this is how I see it as a business owner, and I've been through the negativity, as you know, is if you did what the contract said or what you agreed to, and they didn't like something else because you wouldn't do it, in my opinion, that doesn't deserve a negative review. It means
Yeah,
you did what you were.
you're going down a whole new
I know I am.
podcast episode which you need to discuss with somebody like your friend, that the major business guy up there. But I would say, yeah,
Yep.
you're right. I mean, you can get into some muddy waters with people being, but I've seen people still continue to be negative after the owner has reached out and tried to fix the problem. I tried to explain to some of my customers that, oh, well, I only got a 4-star review on this, or I got a bad review or whatever. I'm like, hey, take a look at your reviews, and like, you've got 30 reviews and 28 of them are positive. Two
Yep.
people are negative. Most people will look at that and go, yeah, those people are just, complainers.
There
So
are
you
those.
got to take that as a business owner. You can get down. You can really get down about 1 or 2 reviews, but when you look at the entire summation and see that 98% of it is positive, you're doing fine.
They're doing fine. So
Yeah,
let's move
but
on to case studies. Really important. And this is the one on this list that probably takes a lot to do, right? Case studies take
yeah, I
time.
mean, it's not as easy as like gathering. I mean, not to say getting a testimonial is easy, it's not, but a case study, you probably are going to have a writer to write it for you, that kind of thing.
Yep.
I see, especially in the web design space, somebody will call it a case study, and they throw a few data points on there,
Yep.
and we use this tech stack, and that's not a case study. That's an overview of the project. Okay, that's fine. A case study, there's a couple ways you can do them, and I am more of the line of I want to see a narrative driven one. I want to see before, during, and after. I want, it's fine to put the data in there. We increase conversions by 6% or whatever, but tell me how you did it. Tell me what the results were for the customer. And that takes weaving a narrative in with those data points. But case studies are typically really dry, especially in the B2B space.
Yep.
But if you're a service business and you're listening, don't make a dry case study. In my opinion, Rob, and I'm a writer saying this, but my opinion is far better to get a customer on video telling the story than
That is.
writing a dry, boring case study that you call a case study, which is dry and boring. You're much better off, because case studies aren't always just written,
That is
right?
true.
You can do a case study in a video format. You can do it on a podcast episode. You can do, but the format is just as important as the actual case study. But by it, don't go with the dry, boring. That's my opinion. I mean, white papers, that kind of stuff is very,
That's boring. They're
yeah,
dry.
it makes my eyes glaze over. Write it like you're writing a short mini book, with
I agree.
really, really spacious room and really big, pretty pictures, and kind of tell a little story.
I agree.
If you fail to tell a story, that people aren't going to remember the numbers,
Yep. Yep.
unless you got one number in there or something like that, like, oh, the 6% conversion, But if you throw a bunch of numbers at them, they won't remember it. But if you tell a story, they will remember that.
Yep.
So I don't even like to call it a case study. I call it a case study here, but it should be customer story, customer success story is what I think it should be
Agree.
called.
Agree. Media appearances. This is a big one for me, actually, because as you know, I have this
Yeah.
monstrous media page. That's huge.
So from the show notes I gave you after that, I updated just a little bit and kind of broke them into two
Yep.
bullet points. But one of them is media appearances, and I call that traditional PR. And the other one is podcast appearances and featured articles. But they're all under the same umbrella, okay, especially in the age of digital. So getting on a podcast, being featured in an article in a magazine, on a high traffic blog, and then you got your traditional PR, right? Where you're interviewed by somebody in the media, where it's TV or a news source or whatever. Those types of media, that's traditional PR. It still works. It's still necessary. And that's why I tell people to have your story together, because guess what? When that person from the media comes to your site, they're looking for those things. For whatever reason, why did they land on your site? Well, that's another, we could discuss that at another time. But if they land on your site, they're going to be one of the first things they're going to go to is look for an about section.
Yep.
Oh, do they have uh, a, an approved picture I can use? Yes. Okay, here it is. Is there a logo that I can use? Yes. And then is there a bio? Yes. And okay, what is the story? And then sometimes that'll be the difference in them actually reaching out and contacting you versus them not contacting you.
Yep.
But there's still room for traditional media appearance, especially if you're in an area with the metropolitan area, like where you live in Toronto, or one of the bigger cities in the States. Um, that can be very, or business journals and business magazines, newspapers. We have a couple in the area. I actually wrote for one for a long time, but they never. We had a printed magazine they did every other month, but the website was the big deal. And sometimes my articles will be put in the magazine. So like I did one a Q&A with Brittany Hodak from used to be Zine Pack. She runs Superfans thing now, and I did a Q&A with her. It was all done by email, and got a picture, and we put it on the website. It was really cool. And then the guy who did the magazine for Talk Business, he messaged me, said, "Can we get a higher resolution picture of
Yep.
Brittany for this?" I said, "Sure." When the magazine came out, Rob, one side was the actual article, the other side was this huge picture of
Mhm.
Brittany, her and so we have Arkansas Business Journal.
Yep.
Every metropolitan area has a business journal type publication. That's all under traditional media. Radio, radio spots. People still get on the radio.
They
They
do.
host. Yeah, I mean, radios are starting to do um, podcasts. Basically,
The
they
other
basically host a podcast nowadays. So you got lots of options for traditional media.
the other thing I would suggest is for media appearances, if you have the time, and this is something I've gone and created a media kit website.
Mhm.
So what's
Yeah.
on that website is basically a profile, a founder story,
Yeah.
images you can download if you want. So if
Hmm.
you want to grab an image for an interview, go ahead and grab it.
Hmm.
And then contact info and a link to the media appearance page on my site of
Hmm.
other stuff I've done. And it's very
Yeah.
simple, but
Yeah.
it means when somebody asks me for something, I can say, go here and go grab it.
Yeah, you don't even have to build a website for that. You can have a 2 or 3 pages. You can have one
That's it.
page to do all that if you want.
Yeah.
But you could put it on your main website. Most companies will put that under their about section. They'll
Oh,
have the about section, and they'll have stuff like, media kit or whatever, PR kit. And
yep.
actually Main WP, the one of the companies I write for, they have a media, they used to, I don't know if they still do, a media kit page where you can download the official logo and all that jazz. So if you're a company, it could be just as simple as making a page under the about section
Yep.
and
Yep.
saying, here's our official logo, here's our official colors, here's official pictures that you can use, here's a bio of our CEO, all that stuff. It's kind of like a repository for the journalists or whoever the media outlet is who's fixing to interview you. So I think it's a great idea to have.
Logos. I think this one only matters if you're a major company. Coca-Cola, Wyndham Hotels, Pepsi, McDonald's, Taco Bell,
Yeah,
Pizza
when I
Hut.
updated my little note thing, I said well-known brands and
Yes,
customers, and I think
yes,
and it doesn't have to be international, right? So we're in Arkansas. Well, everybody's heard of JB Hunt, but suppose you're working with JB Hunt. Well, everybody in Arkansas knows who JB Hunt is. In fact, we were heading down the road yesterday. I was taking my mom to a doctor's appointment, and where we are on the freeway and ahead of us was a JB Hunt truck and a Walmart truck. And I said, that sums up Arkansas right there.
yep,
JB Hunt and a Walmart truck. Obviously, Walmart and JB Hunt are international, but let's just say we ate for lunch at David's Burgers. Well, everybody in Central Arkansas knows what David's Burgers is. If you were doing business with David's Burger and you lived in Central Arkansas, there would be nothing wrong with putting their logo on your website. It would be a tip of the cap. Now, somebody in Toronto, Canada would not know who Dave's Burger is, but if you are, if you're, if you are a company in Central Arkansas and you're targeted Central Arkansas, go ahead and put that Central Arkansas business on there. I'm not against putting smaller ones on there, but I do agree with you that you get the most impact by putting a logo of a bigger brand on there. You want to make sure they're well known to your audience.
Yep.
But I don't have a problem. I have a client that we put a bunch of logos on there. I think it's just don't waste a lot of time on it, but it's just a verification that you have been used by people who are businesses. So if they actually have a logo and they have a website, then that's a good place to start. Clearly, not everybody has Wyndham in their portfolio or Walmart. So, but if it's just a XYZ convenience store down the street, maybe not something you really have to put on there. But if you don't have very many, go ahead and put it on there. Just don't spend all this time making a big deal about it, because of all the things we mentioned, it's probably the least effective.
I would agree.
Unless you have Wyndham in your portfolio or Walmart or Starbucks or something like that.
Yep. Certificates and awards. I think this can work, but depending on how you do. Because a lot of these quote awards, you have to submit a fee for it to be called the top in Arkansas or the top in Toronto.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, we'll consider you and we'll guarantee you a spot as long as you pay the fee. So it's really an
and a lot of them are also a popularity contest. So it was just our friend the vendor does the WP Weekly Awards every year, which is fun. We all vote for it. Well, one of my clients, being WP, was a winner in the WP Tools department or whatever, WordPress Tools department, and we celebrated that, as we should. But it's a popularity contest. People went and voted for it, and that plays out over and over. But the certifications that I would be, I had a customer who was a cleaner who went and got certified in certain cleaning aspects.
Yes.
That was appropriate to put on her site. She went and got that. If you are a digital marketer and you got a digital marketing certificate from, HubSpot or something like that, put it on there. Those kind of certifications kind of give you validity as a service provider. If you are a professional that clearly you have to have like credential, like a CPA or something like that, certainly you put CPA. If you get continuing ed and they offer a certification, put that on the site. It just stacks the expertise factor in your favor. But yeah, I think what you're pointing out is valid. These popularity contests and these pay-fors are probably least effective, but something you had to either pay to do or you had to take a test to do, those are probably a little bit more worthy of putting up on your website or in your marketing material.
Yep. And the last but certainly not least, data. Data is kind of everything because it's quantifiable, right?
Yeah. So data, I put that. I do think it's important. I just think sometimes, depending on what you are. So, for instance, I was working with a company a couple years ago from Chicago who does tax remediation services. They had a number of data points that they had come up with, and I was like, that needs to be on the website. So we put it on the website. It was like, we helped over, so many people, you know, um, if you've got something and you have a tally and you've saved people $2.5 million, like, or something like that. It's the old McDonald's thing, over 63 billion served, or whatever they say on their
Yeah,
thing.
exactly.
They used to say. It's just stacking the verification of who you are as a business. So, but there are some data that are really, really good. If it's very quantifiable, then absolutely that would be something. Again, don't get too hung up on numbers. because people fail to remember the numbers, but it's more or less, it's just another tile in your mosaic of, I like that. I just came up with that on the top of my head. You have your social proof mosaic.
And make sure you can prove those numbers, because somebody's going to call you out on them. And I've seen too many times where
Yes.
people pull numbers
Yeah.
out of hat.
Do not make up numbers. No. If you have something that you can point to, then absolutely. If you've done 10 case studies, and each case study there is a quantifiable number that the customer you work with said that you saved them money or made them money, you can add all those up. And then somebody says, "Where'd you get that number?" I say, "Well, go read our 10 case studies where we said we saved an average of $15,000 per client." Or whatever. I'm just making that up. But do not make up numbers. Make sure it's something that you can verify, you can point to. That is definitely a true statement to make.
Yeah. Check out those credibility enhancers. I would suggest you use them. You need some help, reach out to Todd at Copywriting. And as always, Todd, thanks so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Have a good day.
This podcast has been brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital marketing concierge to help the business owner put all his pieces together, whether it's email marketing, WordPress security, WordPress design and development, PPC, and more. Text Stunning Digital Marketing for all your digital marketing needs today. A very special thank you to Todd Jones for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. The SDM Show is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much every day. My mother, Ann Cairns, who's still doing really well and is an inspiration. And of course, Tiz Maroney. And Tiz, I know I've said it, but thank you so much for all the inspiration you give me every day.